My stepdad called me the worst investment he ever made growing up. So I left at 17, became a venture capitalist, and now I'm the one who rejected his startup funding request last week. Friends, your love keeps this channel alive. Please hit subscribe and don't forget to say hi in the comments with your city or country. We read them all. The conference room smelled like expensive leather and desperation. I sat at the head of the mahogany table, my fingers steepled as Joel Williams, my stepdad, stumbled through his pitch deck. His hands trembled slightly, catching the light from the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Chicago. 10 years. It had been 10 years since I'd seen him up close like this. Ms. Parker, our projected growth indicates. He started, but I noticed the exact moment recognition hit him. His face went pale, that same shade I remembered from when Mama died. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Continue, I said coolly, my voice steady despite my racing heart. He cleared his throat. Kira? Is that you? I didn't answer. My associate, Jeremy, shifted uncomfortably beside me. Joel's business partner, some white guy named Todd, looked confused, glancing between us. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Your financials show significant gaps, I said instead, tapping my pen against the portfolio. Your burn rate is unsustainable. Joel's jaw tightened. That old familiar look, the one that preceded his lectures about my lack of appreciation and how I was bleeding him dry. But this time, I wasn't that scared 17-year-old girl clutching a garbage bag full of clothes at a Greyhound station. This time I was the one holding all the cards. We can explain those, Todd interjected. I'm sure you can, I interrupted, my eyes never leaving Joel's face. But first, I'd like to hear about your investment philosophy, Mr. Williams. How do you determine which investments are worth your time? His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. 13 years earlier. I was 12 when Joel Williams entered our lives, stepping into our South Side apartment like he owned the place. Mama's eyes lit up whenever she saw him, a light I hadn't seen since Daddy died in that factory accident when I was 7. Joel wore tailored suits that smelled like cologne that cost more than our monthly rent. He worked in finance, whatever that meant. Your mama deserves nice things, Kira, he'd say, winking at me while presenting her with jewelry boxes. And so do you, sweetheart. Those first 6 months felt like a dream. Joel took us to restaurants where the menus had no prices. He moved us to a brick house in Hyde Park with a backyard and everything. I had my own room, painted purple because I'd mentioned once that it was my favorite color. Mama stopped working double shifts at the hospital. She smiled more. He's good to us, baby, Mama would say, braiding my hair on Sunday mornings. God sent us an angel. I believed her. I believed him too, especially when he sat at my homework table helping me with algebra, his patience endless. You're smart, Kira. Really smart. You could do anything you want. When they married at City Hall that December, I wore a new dress, navy blue with white trim. Joel's parents were there, his mother Diane giving me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. So this is the package deal, she'd said, the pause loaded with meaning I didn't yet understand. But Joel had squeezed my shoulder. This is my daughter now, Ma. Best bonus I ever got. The warning signs were there, whisper soft, barely noticeable. But I was too busy being happy to hear them. The change started small, like water finding cracks in concrete. 6 months after the wedding, Joel stopped helping with homework. Then came the comments, casual but cutting, usually delivered with that half smile that never touched his eyes. Kira got another B in math, he'd announce at dinner, fork pausing midair. That's disappointing. I had A's throughout school. Mama would defend me. Baby, AB is good. Good isn't great, Evelyn. I'm paying for that fancy school, I expect excellence. The fancy school was Lake Shore Academy, a private institution where most kids arrived in drivers. I took the L train, usually arriving sweaty and anxious. My classmates, Brianna, Chelsea, Connor, talked about summer homes in Michigan and spring breaks in Turks and Caicos. I talked about helping Mama's sister, Aunt Tasha, at her salon on weekends. "Why do you still do that?" Joel asked one Friday evening when I mentioned my plans. "You're embarrassing yourself working in that establishment. People from my office shop in that neighborhood. What will they think?" "It's Aunt Tasha's business," I protested, 14 and confused. "She needs help." "What I need," Joel said, his voice dropping to that dangerous register I was learning to recognize, "is for my family to represent me properly. Your aunt is barely making ends meet. That's not the life we live anymore." Mama touched his arm. "Joel, honey. You're always defending her, Evelyn." He stood abruptly, his chair scraping. "I work 80-hour weeks to provide for this family, and this is the respect I get?" That night I heard them arguing through the walls. Mama's voice, pleading. Joel's, cold and unforgiving. By morning Mama's eyes were puffy, but she smiled at breakfast like nothing happened. Joel started keeping a ledger, an actual fucking ledger, of everything he spent on me. I didn't know about it until I accidentally found it in his study while looking for printer paper. The leather-bound notebook sat on his desk, my name written in bold across the top. Kira Expenses. My hands shook as I flipped through pages. Lake Shore Academy tuition, $22,000 per year. School supplies, $347. Winter coat, $180. Orthodontist, $4,500. SAT prep course, $1,200. Each entry dated, categorized, totaled. At the bottom of the most recent page he'd written in red ink, current investment, $78,432. ROI, TBD. ROI. Return on investment. What are you doing in here? Joel's voice from the doorway made me jump, the notebook tumbling to the floor. I was just the printer. He crossed the room in 3 strides, snatching up the notebook. His jaw tightened as he saw which page I'd been viewing. For a moment I thought he might apologize, might explain it away as just his analytical mind working. Instead he said, "You should know exactly how much you cost. Maybe then you'd show more gratitude." "I do show gratitude," I whispered, 15 and suddenly feeling very small. "I say thank you. Thank you." He laughed, bitter and sharp. "Thank you doesn't pay bills, Kira. Thank you doesn't earn back the money I pour into you. Your grades are mediocre, you have no special talents, you're not particularly athletic or artistic. You're just average. Do you know what happens to average investments?" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "They fail," he finished, his eyes cold. "They become liabilities." Mama found me crying in my room later. "Baby, what's wrong?" But how could I tell her? By 16 I'd learned to make myself invisible. I aced every test, joined every club Joel suggested, smiled until my face hurt. The ledger grew longer. The comments grew sharper. "That college application fee is $85, Kira. Do you know how many students apply to Harvard? What makes you think you're special enough? These SAT scores are fine, but fine doesn't get scholarships. I'm paying for test prep. Where's my return? You want to go to prom? That's $200 for a dress you'll wear once. Calculate the cost per wear for me. Go ahead, you're supposed to be good at math." Mama got sick that fall, breast cancer stage 2. I'd come home from school to find her in bed, exhausted from radiation. Joel worked longer hours. "Someone has to pay these medical bills, Evelyn. Someone has to be the adult here." I started working at Aunt Tasha's salon again, despite Joel's objections. Every Saturday and Sunday I'd wash hair, sweep floors, organize products. Aunt Tasha would slip me $60 in cash, which I hid in a shoebox under my bed. "You saving for something, baby girl?" she asked one Sunday afternoon. "Just in case," I said, not meeting her eyes. He knew. Somehow Aunt Tasha always knew. One night in February I overheard Joel on the phone in his study. "No, Mother, I told you, it's complicated. Evelyn won't hear of it, but the girl is 17 now. Legally, I'm not obligated past 18. The medical bills are crushing us. If we just streamline things." My blood ran cold. I know it sounds harsh, but think of it as cutting losses. He's not even mine. When Evelyn recovers, we can start fresh. Maybe have our own. I stopped listening and went to count the money in my shoebox. $1,840. Not enough for much, but enough to run. March 15th. I remember because it was the Ides of Caesar, the day we just studied in AP history. Mrs. Patterson had talked about betrayal, about how the ones closest to you strike the deepest. I came home to find Joel in the kitchen with Mama, who was crying. Not the soft tears she usually hid, full body shaking sobs. Medical bills covered the table. "What's wrong?" I dropped my backpack. "Nothing you need to worry about," Joel said, his voice clipped. "Adult matters." But Mama looked at me, her eyes hollow. "The insurance. They're not covering all of it. We need $45,000 for the next treatment phase." My heart stopped. "But you need that treatment," Dr. Harris said. "We'll figure it out," Joel interrupted, pouring whiskey, though it was only 4 in the afternoon. "We're looking at options." "What options?" I pressed. He took a long drink. "Options that don't concern you." "Joel has been so stressed," Mama said quickly. "He's been working so hard, baby. For all of us." Something in her tone, desperate, pleading, made my stomach turn. "What aren't you telling me?" Joel slammed his glass down. "You want to know? Fine. You want to know what it costs to keep this family afloat? $8,000 a month for this house. $2,000 for your mother's medications. $1,800 for your school. $500 for utilities. $1,200 for cars. Another $600 for insurance. Add your food, clothes, activities. Do you have any idea how much you cost?" "Joel, please." Mama reached for him. "No, Evelyn. He should know. She walks around here entitled, expecting everything handed to her." "Well, reality check, Kira. You're the worst investment I ever made." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire. The worst investment I ever made. Those 6 words rewired something fundamental in my brain. I stood there in our kitchen, his kitchen, watching him drain his whiskey while Mama sobbed apologies I didn't ask for. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like they didn't know the world had just ended. "I didn't mean," Joel started, but his eyes said he did. He meant every word. "Yes, you did," I said quietly. My voice sounded strange, distant. "You've always meant it." I turned and walked upstairs. Behind me I heard Mama, "How could you say that to her?" And Joel's response, "I'm just being honest. We can't afford her and your treatments. Something has to give." In my room I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called Aunt Tasha. "Baby girl. It's Saturday. I thought you were coming tomorrow. Can I stay with you?" The words tumbled out. "I need to leave. Tonight. Can I please stay with you?" Silence. Then, "Pack your things. I'm coming now." I filled 2 garbage bags. One with clothes, one with everything else that mattered. Photos of Mom and Daddy. My acceptance letter to Columbia I'd hidden from Joel because he'd called it mediocre Ivy. The shoebox of money. My laptop. A blanket Grandma made before she passed. Mama appeared in my doorway. Kara, baby, please. He didn't mean it like that. He's under so much pressure. He called me an investment, Mama. I couldn't look at her. A failed one. Do you know he has a ledger? With everything he's ever spent on me? Every dollar calculated, waiting for his return. Her face crumpled. I didn't know about that. But you knew something. Now I did look at her and she flinched. You knew how he talked to me. How he made me feel. And you let it happen because you were scared he'd leave. That's not fair. What's not fair, I said, my voice breaking, is being 12 years old and losing my real daddy, then getting a new one who sees me as a line item on a balance sheet. Aunt Tasha's horn honked outside. I grabbed my bags. Kira, please don't do this, Mama begged. You're 17. Where will you go? How will you finish school? I'll figure it out. I paused at the top of the stairs. I'm good at math, remember? I'll calculate my own ROI. Joel stood at the bottom, arms crossed. You walk out that door, don't expect me to take you back. I wouldn't dream of it, I said, and I pushed past him into the night. Aunt Tasha's apartment above her salon was small. A studio with a pull-out couch and a bathroom where you had to stand sideways to close the door. But it was mine. Ours. She cleared space in her closet, gave me half her dresser, and never once asked for rent. Your mama's calling, she said after the third day. You should talk to her. Is he there? I asked. She says no, but I didn't call back. Not then. Columbia had given me a full scholarship, something I'd hidden from Joel because the acceptance letter arrived the same week Mama started chemo. I'd known instinctively he'd find a way to poison it, to make even that achievement about him and his investment. But I still needed money for living expenses, books, transportation. The scholarship covered tuition and housing, but not life. I can work more hours, I told Aunt Tasha. Full-time this summer, then part-time during school. She studied me over her coffee. Baby girl, you're 17. You should be worrying about prom and graduation, not survival. I am surviving. That's the point. I picked up shifts anywhere that would hire me without asking too many questions. The salon on weekends, a coffee shop weekday mornings, a catering company for events. I slept 4 hours a night, maintained my 4.0, and saved every penny. Mrs. Patterson, my history teacher, noticed. Kira, you look exhausted. Is everything okay at home? I don't live at home anymore, I said simply. Her face shifted. Where? I'm safe. I'm with family. But I need a favor. I swallowed my pride. Can you write me a recommendation letter? For summer programs? Paid internships. He did more than that. She connected me with a friend at Goldman Sachs who ran a diversity pipeline program for high school seniors interested in finance. The irony wasn't lost on me, Joel's world, but now mine to conquer. Why finance? The interviewer, a black woman named Patricia Hall, asked during my screening call. Because money is power, I answered honestly. And I'm tired of being powerless. I got the internship. $25 per hour, 8 weeks. Mama came to see me in May, 3 months after I'd left. She'd lost more weight, her headscarf bright against her hollowed features. I'm still getting treatment, she said. Joel is paying for it. Good, I said and meant it. He asks about you. Don't. We sat in silence. Finally, I'm proud of you, baby. Even if I don't say it right. I know, I whispered. I know, Mama. Columbia's campus felt like a different planet. Brick buildings covered in ivy, students who talked about philosophy over artisanal coffee, library towers that stretched toward clouds. I arrived with my garbage bags of belongings and Aunt Tasha's fierce hug. You call me every Sunday, she ordered. And if you need money. I won't. I squeezed her tight. I've got this. My roommate, Jessica, was from Connecticut, her father some hedge fund manager. She had matching luggage sets and a MacBook Pro. I had my 5-year-old Dell and determination. So what does your family do? She asked, making small talk while unpacking designer clothes. My aunt runs a salon. My mom's a nurse. I didn't mention Joel. I never mentioned Joel. The Goldman internship had changed everything. Patricia Hall became my mentor, teaching me to read 10Ks, understand market trends, think in terms of risk and reward. You have instinct, she'd said. Raw talent. But you need education to refine it. I majored in economics with a minor in computer science, slept 4 hours a night and worked 3 jobs. Coffee shop barista at 6 a.m., library assistant at noon, coding freelance gigs at midnight. My classmates partied. I built my future brick by brick. Sophomore year, I landed a summer analyst position at Patricia's firm. Junior year, they offered me full-time upon graduation. Senior year, I won the department's Outstanding Thesis Award for my paper on venture capital inefficiencies in minority-owned businesses. You're going places, Kira, my advisor, Professor Martinez, said. Have you considered venture capital? Every day, I admitted. Mama called monthly. Sometimes I answered. She'd tell me about her treatments. In remission now, thank God. About Aunt Tasha's salon expansion, about neighborhood gossip. She never mentioned Joel unless I asked. I never asked. Until senior year October when she said, Joel started a company. Some tech thing. He's been working on it for 2 years, got some investors interested. My blood went cold. Good for him. Kira, baby. I have to go, Mama. Midterms. But I looked it up later. Williams Tech Solutions. Cloud-based supply chain management. Seed funding from a few angel investors. Cute. I graduated summa cum laude. Mama came to the ceremony, her cancer gone but her marriage clearly not. She sat alone in the family section, a space beside her conspicuously empty. He wanted to come, she lied. No, he didn't, I said. And I didn't want him to. That summer I started at Quantum Ventures, one of the most prestigious VC firms in Chicago. I was 21 years old, the youngest analyst they'd ever hired. And I was just getting started. Quantum Ventures occupied the 43rd floor of Willis Tower, all glass walls and cutthroat ambition. My boss, Richard Sterling, was a legend. Made his first million at 25, his first billion by 40. He'd built his reputation on spotting potential others missed. You remind me of myself, he told me during my first week. Hungry, but not desperate. There's a difference. I learned everything. Cap tables, term sheets, due diligence, portfolio management. How to read a founder in 30 seconds. Spot red flags in financial statements, negotiate terms that protected our interests while leaving room for growth. I worked 100-hour weeks, took calls at 2 a.m. from founders in different time zones, and turned down every social invitation. You need balance, Jessica said when we met for coffee. She was at McKinsey now, making good money but burning out. You're going to collapse. I'll collapse after I make partner, I said. By 25, I was promoted to senior associate. By 27, I led my first deal. A $12 million Series A for a biotech startup that exited 3 years later for $340 million. Richard gave me a corner office and a 7-figure bonus. What's driving you? He asked over celebratory scotch. Most people at your level have something to prove. Who are you proving it to? Myself, I said, which was only half true. The other half was that ledger, those words, that feeling of being calculated and found wanting. Every deal I closed, every company I built, every million I made, it all whispered. See? See what I'm worth? Pathetic maybe, but effective. I bought Aunt Tasha's building, the entire structure, and renovated the salon. Baby girl, I can't accept. You gave me a home when I had none, I said. This isn't charity. It's repayment. Mama's calls became more frequent. She'd left Joel 2 years earlier finally, and lived in a small condo I'd quietly purchased for her. You didn't have to do this, Kira. Yes, I did, I said. You're my mother. He never got that love isn't transactional. By 32 I made partner at Quantum. By 34 I'd launched my own fund, Infinity Capital, focused on women and minority founders overlooked by traditional VC. Forbes put me on their 30 under 30 list 4 years late, but I made their 40 under 40 list at 34. I'd made it. By every metric that mattered, I'd won. So why did Joel's rejection still echo in my bones? You can't outrun your trauma, my therapist, Dr. Yolanda Ross, said gently. You can only integrate it. I'm not running, I insisted. I'm succeeding. Those aren't mutually exclusive. I thought I'd exorcised his ghost. Thought I'd moved past caring what he thought or said or believed about my worth. Then his pitch deck landed in my inbox and I realized, some wounds don't heal. They just wait. Joel's startup, Rapid Chain Solutions, was seeking Series B funding, $25 million to scale their supply chain optimization platform. On paper it looked decent. Strong early revenue, good customer retention, experienced team. But I'd learned to look beneath paper. Their burn rate was unsustainable. Customer acquisition costs were climbing. The management team lacked diversity. And their projections assumed market conditions that hadn't existed since 2019. More than that, Joel Williams, CEO and founder, had a history I knew intimately. Why are we even taking this meeting? Jeremy asked, reviewing the materials. He was my associate, brilliant and loyal, poached from Harvard Business School. Their metrics are concerning. Due diligence, I said smoothly. Never know what might surprise you. The conference room smelled like desperation masked by expensive cologne. Joel had aged, gray at his temples, lines around his eyes, shoulders slightly stooped. But he still had that voice, that presence that had once made 12-year-old me feel safe. Before I learned that safety was just another transaction. Todd, his co-founder, was nervous, fumbling with the laptop. We're experiencing some technical. Take your time, I said, my voice ice. When Joel recognized me, something flickered across his face. Fear? Regret? It vanished quickly, replaced by forced professionalism. Miss Parker. This is unexpected. Is it? I leaned back. You applied to my fund. You knew my name. I didn't make the connection. Parker is common and your mother said you were in finance, but I didn't realize. He stopped, visibly gathering himself. This is remarkably awkward. For you, perhaps. I smiled, razor sharp. Shall we continue with your pitch? He stumbled through it, his polish gone. Todd compensated, talking faster, gesturing more. Jeremy took notes, his expression carefully neutral. I let them finish. Let Joel hope just for a moment that maybe business was business. That maybe the past could stay buried. Then I started asking questions. Mr. Williams, tell me about your investment philosophy. How do you evaluate potential? His jaw tightened. We look at multiple factors. Market fit, scalability, team strength. And ROI? I interrupted. How do you calculate return on investment? When do you decide something, or someone, isn't worth the continued expense? The room went silent. Miss Parker, Todd interjected, clearly confused by the tension. I'm not sure I understand the question. Don't you? I kept my eyes on Joel. You're asking for $25 million. That's a significant investment. I need to know you understand what investment means. That you honor what you build, nurture what you fund, and don't abandon your commitments when they become inconvenient. Joel's face had gone ashen. Kira. It's Miss Parker in this room, Mr. Williams. My voice could cut diamonds. Let's talk about your customer retention strategy. I noticed significant churn in Q3 and Q4 of last year. What happened? We had some operational challenges, he managed. You cut corners, I corrected, referencing my research. Reduced customer support staff by 40% to manage burn rate. Short-term savings, long-term damage. Sound familiar? Jeremy shifted beside me, beginning to understand. I can explain those decisions, Joel said, beads of sweat forming at his hairline. They were necessary for survival. Survival. I tasted the word. Tell me, Mr. Williams, when something you've invested in struggles, when the returns aren't immediate, when maintaining that investment requires sacrifice, what do you do? He couldn't answer. Couldn't speak. Let me tell you what your financials tell me, I continued, opening my folder. You prioritize short-term optics over long-term value. You've churned through 3 CFOs in 2 years. Your employee reviews mention toxic culture and lack of appreciation. You make promises you don't keep. And when things get hard, you cut what you perceive as dead weight rather than investing in actual solutions. That's not fair, Todd protested. You're taking things out of context. Am I? I pulled out the trump card, a leaked internal memo I'd acquired through my network. This is from your last board meeting. Quote, we need to consider cutting our junior development team. They're not providing adequate return for their salaries. These are the people who built your core product. Joel's hands trembled on the table. How did you? I'm very good at my job, I said quietly. I'm good at seeing value where others don't. I'm good at nurturing potential, investing in growth, believing in people even when immediate returns aren't obvious. It's made me exceptionally successful. The silence stretched. Jeremy packed up his laptop, reading the room. Miss Parker, Joel said, his voice barely above a whisper. Can we speak privately? No. I stood. I don't do private conversations with founders seeking funding. Everything stays professional, on record, and above board. So that's it. Joel stood too, desperation cracking through. You're going to let personal history cloud your business judgment? That's not very professional. Actually laughed. You think this is personal? Mr. Williams, I've reviewed 57 pitches this month. I've funded 3. Your company doesn't meet our criteria. Not because of our history, but because your fundamentals are weak and your leadership style is unsustainable. The personal history just means I recognize the patterns faster. I made mistakes, he said suddenly. With your mother. I was wrong. I've been in therapy, I've worked on myself. That's wonderful. Truly. I gathered my materials. But this isn't about redemption. This is business. Your company shows poor management, unsustainable practices, and a culture that burns through talent. We don't invest in that. We invest in leaders who understand that long-term value requires patience, commitment, and the wisdom to see potential even when immediate returns aren't obvious. I paused at the door. You taught me something crucial, actually. You taught me that some people view relationships as transactions, constantly calculating worth, measuring return, ready to cut losses when the balance sheet doesn't look right. That taught me exactly what kind of investor not to be. Kira, please. Miss Parker, I corrected one final time. You'll receive our formal pass in writing within 48 hours. Jeremy will see you out. I left them there. Joel Williams, the man who once calculated my worth in a leather ledger, and Todd, who probably still had no idea what he'd just witnessed. Outside, Chicago sprawled below me, all glittering possibility. Jeremy appeared beside me. That was intense. Want to tell me what that was really about? He called me the worst investment he ever made, I said simply. When I was 17. Kept a ledger of every dollar he spent on me, waiting for his return. Jeremy whistled low. Jesus. Yeah. I looked out at the city I'd conquered. But he was wrong. I wasn't a bad investment. He was just a terrible investor. Couldn't see value, couldn't commit for the long term, couldn't understand that some things, some people, are worth more than immediate returns. My phone buzzed. Mama.